I'm Chris, and you're watching Tucker Sonic. We're here to talk hi-fi. I just got back from Apticon in Burbank, California. Apticon was a technical conference diving deep into an old Cambridge-based company, the Apt Corporation. Their main claim to fame was the Holman Preamplifier, which is a beloved component in my system.
A chap that I knew through a friend of mine said, yeah, I'd love you to recap this preamp. I'd never heard of it because it had never turned up in Australia. Actually, this is really cool. The FET BJT thing, that made me stop and think. The fact that it's got multiple rails, I went, oh, that's really good, because a lot of other preamps don't. There was a whole bunch of things in that preamp that certainly were more related to later preamp designs than designs of the time.
I was proud when Lyric Hi-Fi sold one to Garrick Olson, a famous pianist. Lyric Hi-Fi sold Levinson and Apt, and to sell it to a concert pianist was really quite a coup, I thought.
Apticon was Peter Williams' idea. A longtime recording engineer involved with some pretty great records, Peter also started Quirk Audio, a company that refurbishes classic components from the 50s to the Aughties.
This conference was the product of a very pleasant dinner with Tom, where we were chatting about the history of Apt, the fact that Apt had made like some 12,000 or more preamps, 7,000 or 8,000 power amps. Well, we should do a conference. We decided to come up with Apticon, and here we all are. It really is my pleasure and my honor to introduce Tom Holman.
The Apt Corporation was founded by Tomlinson Holman, who got his start at Advent in the early 70s.
So I come into the business as a young engineer at Advent and said, why do tubes sound better than transistors?
By 2026, home hi-fi was a distant memory in his career. He left Apt to go work with George Lucas. While there, he invented THX. After that, he taught at USC, and then he went to work at Apple.
It's his 80th birthday. What does he want to do on his birthday? Well, he was a college professor for 25 years. Let's give a lecture!
I came from New Jersey, and I just had to come here to hear him speak.
I'm coming in from Massachusetts. I've known Tom since the early 70s.
So I came here from Los Angeles. I found out about it through an ad in Stereophile magazine.
For 2 days, Tom guided a group of engineers through every aspect of his preamp and power amp. Some of them were audio fans who'd never met Tom before. Others were very long-time friends.
I haven't seen him in quite a few decades, actually, in person.
And a couple of former Apt employees showed up as well.
And he worked on the Apt production line.
I did for a very short amount of time, and I was very bad at it.
Tom talked about how the Apt Corporation came to be.
Advent did offer me twice the salary and a 5-year non-compete. And I'd already had the idea that someday I would make a little bit higher end product than Advent would make. The next day I came in and told them, no, thank you, I resign.
Did you spend the night deliberating, or were you pretty instantly?
It happened that my aunt, who was the first person in our family to graduate college and law school, when she died, she left a bequest to my 2 cousins and my brother and me, and that was enough money to sustain me for a year and get Apt started.
I didn't know that.
No, it was a bequest.
That's awesome.
I started with a Heath kit, AA151 stereo amp. I built it from a kit, age 13. I learned to solder.
He went into great detail about his design influences.
Both positive and negative, what I should solve and what they did well. Mark Levinson, when I asked him in a Harvard Square talk, well, what do you do about the crosstalk? He said, well, disconnect the tuner when you listen to records. Okay, that's one way to do it.
He discussed every aspect of the preamplifier and the power amplifier's creation.
We also did a rubber mallet test. Run a 400 hertz sine wave through the whole system, bang it with a rubber mallet, and listen for
It's fascinating to look back at the technology and the design and his thoughts into, building the product.
We had Pam Carter at final listening. You set up with the preamp, so everything would go through the benches. We test, we do this, we go through the metering testing, and then Pam Carter would be using the same piece of music every day for a girl, although she liked the tunes, Rumors, and suddenly she'd go, this one's got a problem left channel, right channel. Her hearing was so acute, she could tell if an op amp went bad, went distorted, the tone controls weren't on spec, and she could tell kicking back. And we got to be like, Pam says so, we got to open the box again.
So what I found in working on a number of the preamps.
Peter and his colleague Greg shared their experiences with refurbishing the old equipment.
How long are capacitors lasting? What is their performance after 30 years, 40 years, 45 years?
But here we are 50 years later, and we've got a vast array of new devices we can use. And they will all produce results that are going to be at least as good as when the unit was new. And some will argue better. Mr. Holman said, double blind. He found somebody who had a double blind TTL logic box, and he made me sit there with it, with headphones on. A, B, X.
I found the conference very enjoyable, but I must admit that 95% of it went way over my head.
They flip the polarity, or they use all-pass filters to scramble the phase.
It uses a charge pump to provide the negative rail.
Where if we saw a second harmonic distortion in our instrumentation recorders, that way we degassed the head to get rid of it.
Of course.
So it was a bad thing.
Tom is very, very good at spotting things that need to be fixed.
He also peppered the material with anecdotes from his various careers.
No one had ever been hired at Apple and brought an intern with them, and he winds up being the manager of rapid prototyping for the headset. By the way, I named 5.1 in 1987 in a meeting. I went to Paul Klipsch and drove to Hope, Arkansas. We had to connect the two grounds together between the two monoblocks, and that's when the smoke came out. So I smoked his brains.
As for me, I was there to help Tom and his friend Jim capture the whole thing on video.
Just leave it behind the scenes. The behind the scenes.
For Peter and Greg, Apticon was a way to disseminate the lessons they've learned in helping this nearly 50-year-old hi-fi live up to its design potential.
To keep them alive, what needs to be attended to on these preamps? There was a lot of material. Everybody who attended seemed to get something out of it. Everybody seemed to learn something, including me, so I was very happy.
It's kind of whetted my interest in repairing and refurbishing audio equipment, and I have almost zero background in that.
For Tom, Apticon was a time machine, taking him back to Cambridge in the 1970s.
We got this idea, we started making this thing, and we had an opening Sunday brunch, and we invited those guys and everybody else we knew, NAD and Snell and so forth, into our new loft. I made a bunch of quiches and a big pot of coffee, and we had an opening party. As I recall, Henry and Andy attended.
For the rest of us, Apticon was a chance to celebrate a component that has touched all of our lives, as well as to honor a man who has spent decades trying to help us all experience sound as best as possible.
And when the voice of the charioteer falls silent, they are reconciled for a night in sleep. Thank you for your time. Good day.